Hello and welcome along to another episode of this FM19 story, The Head Coach with me, Daniel. It's Season 12, Episode 2, and today we take charge of our first competitive game at our new club as we play at home to Chievo with Napoli in Serie A. If you don't know why we're here and haven't been introduced to the Napoli squad yet, please do make sure you go back and check out the previous episode as we met all of the new players and staff at the club, as well as talking about how we got here. I'll put a link in the eye above to that one. But today we're going to be reviewing our transfer window, the first one with our new director of football, what's he been able to achieve and what sort of squad was he left us with for the season. We did know from the last episode there were quite a few gaps in the squad and 3 positions in particular where we didn't have any first team professionals at all. We're also going to be introducing the tactic we'll be using for our first overseas side in the series, as that will of course be based on the players we already had here and the ones that have since joined the club. And then of course most importantly, it's our first game. We really want to get off to a winning start after a strong pre-season, but with a lot of new players joining the club, it's going to be quite difficult for them to gel that quickly. We obviously left the last episode knowing we didn't have a transfer budget, but over $1 million left on the wage bill. We have managed to recoup some money for players, so we've got a bit of a transfer budget now, but the window shut the day before the season, so it's too late for us to use it. You might see a couple of names that surprise you on this screen. I'm not sure if you'll be able to put 2 and 2 together, but I'm not going to wait for any longer. Let's go and have a look at the transfers and the players that have joined the club. We mentioned there were 3 that were already in the process of joining before we even joined Napoli. Our director of football was working on those. He's brought in another 4 or 5 loans on top of those 3. We've got so many loan moves, it's unbelievable. And then we did manage to get 1 transfer in the end, and we've just been left with a pretty balanced squad, which we have to credit our brilliant director of football for. We asked if we were going to fall in love with him in the first window, and I think we pretty much are based on what he's done. If we go and have a look at the transfer history, he's been a very busy man. How many loans is that? That's 8 in total for the first team. One £6 million signing, and then all of the 3 big money players had joined us before we came to the club. In terms of outs, just the top 2 had gone before we joined. A few of the youngsters have gone along, as has Anthony Martial out on loan, but there aren't really many first team players going. A lot of youngsters who need first team football. The only one who was really close to the first team was Agostino Serrano. He's gone on loan to fellow top tier sides Bologna. He's going to get a lot of football there. He's a really decent player and I hope he comes back ready for the first team. He's made an appearance for the under 21 side for Italy, so I think he's going to become a top class player. One of the things you will have probably noticed is we've brought 2 familiar names in, and one of them's a player I really didn't want to see join the club. He's a player who, if you remember back to the last episode of last season, actually ruined our final game at our former club. But we'll get to him in a minute. We've met all of the 3 that were already in the club. The 2 attacking midfielders we looked at in detail. The other one was Mirko Proyer. He came for 35 million from Everton, and to be brutally honest, he's a squad player at best. I'm not quite sure why they spent that much money on him. But let's get on to the ones our director of football signed. The first of them is Conrad Lima. He fills a position we needed desperately, as he's a natural at right back. He can also play in holding or central midfield, and we're only paying 20 grand a week to his wages. So he's on loan from another Italian side in AC Milan, having been at Sevilla last season, and I think he's going to be a decent player for us. He's certainly going to be versatile. The next one is the first superstar, Giuseppe La Rocca, on loan from PSG. Again, we're only paying about 40 grand a week in wages. He's an elite level midfielder, 4-star ability, 4-star potential, and he looks like he's going to be an absolute superstar. He was on loan at Inter last year, who finished near the top of the division as well. He's been playing for PSG and Bayer Leverkusen. He's got experience across all of Europe's top leagues. An absolutely brilliant player, Italian international, counts towards the homegrown quota. There couldn't be many more positives with him. Next along is a loan signing from Real Madrid, another club we nearly joined in the summer. Guilherme Arana, that is, a Brazilian 32-year-old fullback. Again, a bit of a squad player for now. 3-star ability, 3-star potential. He is starting to decline, but again, our director of football was already working for him before we joined, just to try and get fullbacks into the club. And in him and Lima, he's really done that with 2 solid experienced players. He has brought in other alternatives since, but the fact that these guys were already being discussed is one of the key reasons I chose to join Napoli, even though I knew they didn't have a transfer budget and that they didn't have fullbacks fullbacks at the time. The only position I wasn't sure about is striker, but that one's been fixed with our next signing. Eketi Irado, again from PSG, apologies for the pronunciation again. A 27-year-old Spanish striker, 4 caps for the international team, elite level striker, 4-star ability, 4-star potential, and it's just like signing a £60 million player, but without having to pay any of the money. We're only paying him 30% of his wages, which is 40 grand a week. I have no idea how our director of football have pulled that off. He seems to have a deal or a friendship at PSG, as he's got him and La Rocca for a ridiculously low wage. This guy's absolutely brilliant. Look at his attributes there. For the key position of an advanced forward, he's unbelievable physically. Mentally, he's got all of the key attributes you would want, and technically he's a brilliant finisher, brilliant first touch, and a fantastic dribbler as well. I'm absolutely delighted with that. And then our third player from PSG is Ruben Diaz. Another bit of work from our director of football. He must have a relationship with someone at that club, as I have no idea how he would have done this otherwise. A 32-year-old Portuguese defender, a brilliant youngster in real life, 125 caps for Portugal now, 3.5-star ability, 3.5 potential. He's still got all of his physical strength, he's a brilliant player technically, and mentally he's absolutely unbelievable. The perfect candidate to be a captain on the pitch. At this save, he's been at Monaco and Manchester United as well as PSG, so he's got plenty of experience at the top end of football, as well as those caps for Portugal. However, it does start to take a negative turn with the next one, the one player I really didn't want to see again in this series, and I said whether we're at Newcastle or not, he's certainly not going to be playing for them next year. What I didn't know is that my new club would sign him, with the director of football bringing him in. Now, my director of football, as we saw in the last episode, has 20 for judging ability and potential, so we have to trust that Bernard Martin's a good player, but he will never take a penalty for this club. That is the one thing I will promise you. A 3-star ability striker with 3.5 potential. He's a good player all round, but I'm never going to forgive him for chipping that penalty in the FA Cup final with Newcastle last year. He cost me the chance to win my favourite competition, and as a result he'll be back up anyway. Gerardo's a far better player, and hopefully he won't get too many chances, but when he does, he can do a decent job. We're only paying him 20 grand a week in wages, not bad for a sub striker, and if you'd said to me at the start of the season, having joined the club with no strikers and no transfer budget, that someone of the quality of Bernard Martin would end up being our backup, I'd probably have snapped your hand off in truth. So personal grudges aside, we will work with him this year, and hopefully he'll do us proud and redeem himself for last season. Claudio Gomez is the next one in, another familiar face from last season. He was on loan at Newcastle from Manchester United, and was an instrumental figure as the Segundo Volante, as we managed to win our first ever league title. He's come to us this year again on loan from United, paying him less than 50 grand a week in wages. Our director of football is just as good as the previous one at Newcastle in spotting this talent from Claudio Gomez, and at 29 years of age we haven't had to pay a penny for him, just a standard weekly wage which you'd expect of an average top tier player. He's got 4-star ability, he's a brilliant player, we know exactly what he can do, and he's another one I'm really looking forward to working with. I was planning to play a quite attacking formation until he joined, but now we're going to go for something fairly similar to Newcastle, as we've got 2 players from that squad last year, and this one's too good not to play in the first team. We've got 2 more to go through. Firstly, the last loan signing, Anthony Vernier, another left back, a 22-year-old from Manchester City, 3-star ability, 3.5 potential, and I think he's just a little bit better than Arana, who we had on loan from Real Madrid. We met him earlier, but Vernier looks like a better player going forward, and physically he's got a bit more in the tank, so he's going to be our starting left back this year. We may well play Arana in the Champions League games, as he's got that experience on the continent, but for this player he's not played many games at the top level, but he's certainly got all the attributes to make it, so I'm really looking forward to working with him. And then the one player our director of football bought in permanently, using the 10 million he'd raised from the other players, it's Ivan Chan from Bayer Leverkusen, a right back for £6 million. He's a Mexican international with 36 caps, and again he looks a fairly solid player across the board. A good personality, 2.5-star ability, and he's going to be vying with Lima for the right back slot. So I'm really delighted with the work he's done in the transfer window. We've always said this in FM19 throughout this series, at whichever level we've been at and whichever clubs we've been managing, the directors of football have always been really solid in the loan window, picking out brilliant first team players, but they've not often been able to find good permanent transfers, and that was almost taken out of our director of football's hands here. So the fact we didn't have a transfer budget but had $1 million to spend on wages almost worked perfectly into his hands. We obviously had Lima, La Rocca and Aranya, who were all in negotiation before we joined the club, and then the 5 he's added to that are absolutely brilliant. 2 strikers which we needed, backups at fullback and in central defence, and then another central midfielder which we didn't really need, but he can't turn someone down with Claudio Gomez quality. So after being a little bit worried a month ago to the day, I'm now very excited for the start of the season and hoping I can take Napoli to compete with Juventus, even if not in the league, trying to win the domestic cup at the least. So let's get into this first game of the season. We're going to be playing at home to Chievo. It should be a relatively comfortable game, but I'm sure Roma said that before playing Pescara today, and they lost at home 3-2 in that one. We are heavy favourites as you'd expect. One of the slight issues we've got today is Claudio Gomez is doubtful, and Saavedra, who was last year's captain and a brilliant holding midfielder too, he's out injured for another week or so we are missing a few options in defensive midfield, but nevertheless let's go and meet our tactic and see the players who'll be playing in our first competitive game today. One of the things I really do love about the Italian First Division, I've experienced it before when doing the San Marino Challenge, one of my favourites from years gone by, and probably one you'll see on the channel in the future, is the fact that you've got 12 substitute places, which means that as you get a few injuries during the season, as we've got today with 1 player suspended and 2 injured, we can throw a youngster or 2 on the bench, and if you get one of those games where you're 3 or 4 goals up, you can always bring them on, as you don't have to worry about taking an experienced player off the bench to get one of the youngsters on there. So today, as a result of that change, we've got Coppola on the bench. He's a 16-year-old Italian centre-half, 1.5 star ability, 4.5 potential, and if we do by chance get 3 or 4 goals up, him and Sapper Pap will be our centre-half partnership at the end of the game. But as it stands for this first game, we have gone for experience where possible. We've got Leonardo in goal as he's our standout goalkeeper, Chan the permanent signing at right back, pretty similarly ranked to Lima, and we just want to make sure that with our injuries in midfield, we've got a substitute option if need be, and we also want to give our permanent signing a chance, as if he can reach his potential and just develop a little bit more, it will be more beneficial for him to be in the side. He's also our non-EU signing for the summer, so we do want to make the most of that slot, and we're going to give him the opportunity today to attack as a fullback in what should be a relatively straightforward home game. Vernier's on the other side with Leighton Diaz in the middle, plenty of experience in the centre-half positions there. They're both playing as ball-playing defenders. We want to play out from the back where possible. It's a very similar mentality to Newcastle. All of the instructions are almost identical, and even then we've got the fullbacks and wingers on similar duties to make sure it matches up as well. We just haven't got a top quality attacking midfielder, so our midfield shape's slightly more defensive, but with a Segundo Volante and a box-to-box midfielder, hopefully we'll still get plenty of players forward. We've got Dombele covering for the injured Gomez in central midfield. That's only because the skipper's out as well, as we mentioned. La Rocca's the deep-lying playmaker, Thiago Gaucho, the world-class player, as the box-to-box midfielder, and then Brassi's over on the right wing, with Ismail Sarr as an inside forward from the left, and Gerardo, the new world-class loan signing, the lone striker up front. We've got the likes of young Pap on the bench. He's going to get plenty of football this year. Eventually one of the centre-halves will drop out for games like this, where we expect a comfortable home win, but for now I just want to make sure we get off to a good start, and I'm trusting our experienced players to do that. Dombele's still unhappy, but we haven't got a deal for him yet. There is a club that wants him on loan. I'm not sure if the French transfer window's still open, so we'll wait and see if anything happens on that one. Obviously it's in the hands of our director of football, so if he accepts a loan bid, we can't say no. A bit like the Anthony Martial one, it was only actually for 20% of his wages, and it ended up being pretty pointless, just meaning we needed to sign Bernard Martin as well. But the director of football agreed both of those deals, so who are we to get in the way? We've still got Gaucho unhappy in the middle, but I hope as we compete towards the top of the league, he'll no longer want to move to a bigger club. So you can see a few of the players aren't quite familiar with the tactic, but as we move along in the next few weeks, I'm sure they'll get used to it quickly. Normally we'd have our template set up well before the season, let the lads play a whole pre-season with it, but obviously we didn't have any fullbacks at the start of pre-season, nor did we have any strikers for the first game, so it was very difficult for me to set out a tactic, and it's changed twice during the course of pre-season. But enough about that, let's get into the first game and show you the highlights from our home game against Chievo. Fingers crossed we'll get a comfortable win. Into the game then, remarkably it's an identical formation for Chievo. We thought we were being a little bit wacky when we picked this one, but it looks like they've either tried to match us up, or that's naturally what they were playing, and we're going to come up against it more than we expected in Italy. We've given the youngster a squad number as we were asked to, and we're going to tell the lads to get out there and do it for the fans, just as our new assistant manager recommends. He is the one big signing of the summer in the staffing team. Most of the other big roles haven't been fulfilled yet. Another Hungarian to go with Sapapap, our world-class youngster. He's been at Valencia for a number of years, and Leipzig and PSG before that. He's obviously well known across the footballing world, and a 4-star reputation with the top possible licence. A brilliant assistant manager. Let's get into the first half and deal with our tunnel interview. We've got plenty of time to prepare. We want to win football matches. We've got an elite winger, of course he's going to be important, and we've looked good in training despite having some injuries, so hopefully we'll be able to get the win today. It's Chievo with the kickoff, and I get it wide to the fullback. You'll have to accept my apologies for some of the pronunciations in this league. Nearly 10 minutes gone, a boring game so far and 0-0. It's Fern with a throw on the left hand side. He gets it to Gaucho in midfield. He finds La Rocca, the deep lying playmaker. Out to Chan, who's overlapping on the right. He's got 3 in the middle if he can deliver, but it's a poor cross into the box, and it's easily claimed by the Chievo keeper. He's going to roll it out short as Chievo look to build from the back. We'll see a lot of lower tempo, slower football in this league, and we're going to have to learn how to break sides down. Look how deep they're sitting already there. 8 behind the ball when we've got it in midfield, and we've got to get those 3 players high up the pitch and try and back the defence back into their own box. Hopefully that means we'll get some goals from the edge, as this one falls for Chan into Brass the winger, and he hits it down on the rebound. As we get crosses in all game, they're going to get headed away quite regularly, but as they drop down around the edge like that, we've got world-class players who can finish it. Just over 10 minutes gone, and Brass has given us the lead already. He's now taking an in-swinging corner. Gerardo goes up. First one saved by the keeper, but it falls straight back to him, and our world-class loanee striker has put the ball in the back of the net with less than 20 minutes gone in his first game. Brilliant work from our director of football, and it looks like he's produced a brilliant side for us. It's Leonardo with a short goal kick to late. He's bringing it forward comfortably, and what are Chievo going to do now? They don't really seem to be coming out of their shell, and that just means this game's going to be so comfortable for us as they won't have any threat on the attack. It's Brass into Gerardo again. Good header towards the far post, but the keeper claims it comfortably, and it's 2-0 with a quarter of the game gone. Just under 10 minutes to the break, it's a long goal kick from Chievo. The centre forward's unmarked there, which is a bit of a concern as he gets it down, and he finds his left winger. Into the striker again, it's just wide of the post, and that's the best chance Chievo have had all day. We can deal with those ones comfortably. 5 to the break, it's still 2-0, and what a solid first half performance it's been. Just 3 minutes to the break, it's Brass with an out-swinging delivery, falls for Ruben Diaz, into Brass again on the rebound. Gaucho shoots from the edge and it's blocked, and it falls for Brass. I'm not quite sure what he was doing, but it's behind for a goal kick, and it's going to be 2-0 at the break. There's the half-time whistle then, a really good first half performance, completely dominant. We're just going to tell the lads to carry on as they were. There's a couple of the experienced players looking a little complacent, but if we can get a third goal before the hour mark, we'll get a chance to bring on some of our youngsters. It's La Rocca in central midfield to Brass, but the highlight ends before we see an attack. It's a throw on the right hand side. It's Chan to take it. Our one permanent signing since we joined the club. A good one by our director of football as the ball falls for Gerardo on the edge of the box. He puts it in the corner. A wonderful finish by the striker. Diogo Brass sets up the goal, and those 2 world class players are going to run this team this season. A brilliant loan signing by our director of football, and Bernard Martin's certainly not going to get many chances based on Gerardo's performance today. An hour gone, we'll give it 5 more minutes and then we'll bring on a couple of youngsters. Right, 20 minutes to go. We've not seen any more highlights, so let's give the youngsters some football. Alex Marigi's going to come on. He's an 18-year-old right winger, a homegrown Italian player. We'll bring him on for Sarr and switch Brass to the left-hand side, where he's just as natural and comfortable. We'll drop into a support duty, which he prefers. Marigi's a winger on support. That's what he's natural at anyway, so we're delighted to be able to bring him on. We've also got the option where our defensive midfielders are struggling to push up our centre-halves, who are great ball-playing defenders, and they can go into the holding role comfortably, allowing us to bring on our young centre-halves. So Sapapap, who was the world-class wonder kid we talked about back in the last episode when we joined, he's going to come on for the experienced Dombele, and we're going to push late forward to central midfield. Perhaps not as natural as a ball-playing defender, but I think he's got decent enough attributes for it. He's a decent passer of the ball, so we'll just leave him in that position there. Diogo Late's going to be the segundo volante. He seems to be happy enough there, so we'll just leave him to it. And then I'd really like to bring on the 16-year-old centre-half Coppola, but I am going to leave it for 5 more minutes, just because he's that little bit younger and we don't want him getting exposed too early. 10 minutes to go, we still haven't seen another highlight. We've restricted Chievo to no shots on target all game. Although we've got Coppola, who's naturally a centre-half, we're going to bring him on for La Rocca, who's struggling for fitness. I don't know if he wants to be a holding midfielder. I think for the youngster we're going to put him in at centre-half and move Ruben Diaz forward to the position he prefers. We'll drop him as a defensive duty to protect the young centre-half. Again, not the best ball-playing defender, but he's a decent passer of the ball, so we'll just leave it for the last 10 minutes and give the two youngsters a chance at centre-half. There's been no threat for them all game long, and hopefully that'll continue for the last few minutes. It's a throw at left back for Chievo, where they're finally going to create something. They've still got 7 men right behind the ball there. Look how defensive they are. They just look content with a 3-0 defeat. It's going to be good if lots of sides have that approach this year. Although Simoncini's in behind. A poor tackle by the centre-half. I think that was Coppola who nearly fouled him, but Pap was recovering well and got the ball away for a throw-in. Just a minute of stoppage time to go as Leonardo chips it out to the right back Chan. He's coming forward with no pressure at all, and there's still 7 behind the ball for Chievo. Here's Marigi, the young right winger. Be lovely if he could get a goal. What a move that was. He skimmed 4 or 5 players, putting Gaucho, the box-to-box midfielder. He forces a good save from the Chievo keeper, and it's out for a corner which Brass will swing in. A poor delivery. Brass is absolutely knackered, but what a wonderful game it's been from him. He and Gerardo look like they've dominated the team. Chan's got the ball from the long goal kick. We're about to see the final whistle any second now. A brilliant performance. 1 shot on target for our opposition right at the end, and we absolutely dominated the game, despite not having too much possession. We don't need it if the other team are keeping it in their own half, particularly after we take an early 2-goal lead. Gerardo and Brass were brilliant. The youngsters got some experience, and that's just about the perfect start I could have wished for at the club. Hopefully the fans will be pleased with what they saw. Let's very quickly see what the media have said about the game. I know we spent a long time pre-match on the transfers and our tactic as well, so I don't want to keep you guys for too long, but we did secure a comfortable victory. A few debutants into the team as well. Pap and Marigi making their first appearances. I presume Coppola's was as well. We'll go and praise Brass off camera and deal with the press conference there too, but let's finish on the schedule screen to see when we're next going to be back. We will show you one of the first Champions League group games though, as it's important we compete in Europe as well as domestically, so we'll go for our Champions League group stage draw off camera, and we'll be back for one of the first group stage games, either the first or second, depending on which one has the better opponent. But if you did enjoy this episode and that first game of the new club, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I really hope you enjoyed the performance as much as I did, and that you're as pleasantly surprised as I am by the work our director of football did in the loan market. I shouldn't be surprised based on the success our loan signings have been in previous years at all the clubs at every level, but to bring in 8 of such high quality is a wonderful achievement by Javier Rebolta. Let me know down in the comments where you think we're going to finish this year. Can we compete with Juventus, or are we going to aim for the cup this year and then we'll focus on the league next season? Subscribe to the channel for daily FM19 content from my 2 long-term stories. This one, the head coach, where we're obviously now overseas for the first time, and my 1 club story, part of the furniture with Torquay United, where we're trying to get to the top of English and European football. There's also 3 episodes a week from my Cricket 19 career, every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, and then weekly content from my Snooker 19 career every Friday at 4:30. But a massive thanks for watching as always, and your continued support with the series. I really do appreciate it and hope you enjoy this first season with a new club, and we'll see you next time for a big Champions League game as we try to continue our good early form with Napoli.